right, what is a real estate agent and what does this mean? Is this a person? Is this a position? What do they do? What do I use them for when I hear that word? What does all this mean? Let's look into it. So you see the words I got written on the screen. Residential real estate agent, residential real estate realtor. Those are both people who act as a middle party or a third party for anybody looking to sell a house, okay? Now the definition of them, display, this is the job description actually. So to display and market real property to possible buyers, prepare necessary paperwork, contracts, leases, deeds, closing statements, etc. Manage property auctions or exchanges, maintain and update listings of available properties, cooperate with appraisers, escrow companies, lenders, and home inspectors. So in essence, if you hear all that, all of those things are situations and people that you have to deal with when selling a home. So instead of the homeowner having to deal with all those things, they may choose to hire an agent or a realtor to do those things for them. And if that's what they choose to do, that's perfectly fine. But now this realtor, they actually get paid to do that, right? It is a service. So they get paid on average 6% of the total sales price. So if a home is listed for $100,000, then they get $6,000. Typically, there's two agents, okay? Let's come back to this. I'm gonna break this down in just a second about what it normally looks like when there's agents involved and how the pay goes. All right, now if you are an agent or realtor, they're the same position. It's just one is represented by an association called NAR, and the other one is not. The one that is the realtor, and they pay dues. They pay this association to be affiliated with them. Okay. Now, either way, though, these two parties, they actually took time out of their life, and they studied and they took a test and they passed the test, and then they paid to have a license. So essentially, it's the exact same thing as a driver's license, except instead of your ability to now drive a car, it is your ability to list and sell real estate for someone else. Okay. Now that's the key, for someone else. So you can list and sell your own home. And sorry, let me correct that. You can sell your own home. You cannot have access to the MLS, which is what we mean when we refer to listing. Now let's talk about this, because there's on market and there's off market. Okay. So we're going to talk about on market. All of these things that I'm talking about is on market, listed, for sale with a realtor, with a real estate agent. All these things, those are common phrases that you're going to hear that's connected to this part of real estate. Now, these three items right here, redfin.com, realtor.com, zillow.com, these are all third-party sites that are public facing, meaning you have access to them wherever you are in the world. You can type in redfin.com and it'll bring it up. It should, anyways. I believe that's right, anywhere in the world. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But here in the States, you've got access to it, okay? Now, with Redfin and Realtor and Zillow.com, they pull from public records. Sometimes they are getting, I'm not going to go into where they get the data from. Just know that the MLS, so the MLS, or multiple listing service, is a tool real estate professionals use to share information with each other about homes on the market. So what the MLS is, it's exclusive to these people up here. You have to have a license in order to use the MLS. You do not have to be associated with NAR or anything like that. Like, MLS is a multiple listing service, and it's a platform kind of like this database over here, except it is not public facing, meaning you cannot just jump on your computer and log on and get access to it. People actually pay to have access to the MLS. And on top of that, not only do you pay to have access to the MLS, it's required that you are a licensed real estate agent in order to have access to the MLS. Typically, most scenarios. We're not going to talk about the scenarios where you can get around that. Now, let's talk about what this looks like. All right. So I want to introduce you to somebody. Okay. This is Sally. Now, Sally, and yes, I am an art major, studied many years and got an art degree. Very great drawer, so I know this looks just like a Sally you know. Now, Sally actually owns a home. All right, so this is her home. It's got a door. It even has 2 windows. All right. Now, Sally has ownership of this home. Now, all of a sudden, something in Sally's life is getting her interested in selling her property. Now, Sally is not in no hurry. Her property is in very good shape. It's a beautiful home, as though you can see. And because it is a beautiful home and she's not in a hurry and she can wait, well, what typically the best option for Sally is going to be to list with a agent on the MLS. You should know what MLS stands for, Multiple Listing Service. Now, the reason why is because the MLS is actually the largest pool of buyers there is. So we also have, let me introduce you to somebody else. This is my friend Bob. And Bob doesn't have a house. He's not like Sally, but Bob's looking for a house. So the best way for Bob to look for a house is to go where majority of houses are for sale. Now, you can't just look out your window and see houses for sale. You can drive around the road and look for, for sale signs up in yards. You can talk about, these public facing websites that we have. You can definitely jump on those and start searching and do all that work yourself. But Bob doesn't want to do all that work. Instead, what Bob is going to do is he's going to pick up the phone, right? And this is a phone. And he's going to actually call my friend Debbie. Okay? Now, Debbie is an agent. And she's also a realtor because she's affiliated with NAR. So she actually gets offended when you call her agent. So we're not going to call her agent because she does pay extra money to be affiliated with NAR. Because of that, we're going to call her Realtor Debbie. But essentially, they're the same people. The exact same job. All right. So Bob calls Debbie. Debbie is going to pick up the phone. All right. And they're going to have a conversation. And Bob is going to say, "Hey, Debbie, I'm looking to buy a property. And I saw that you have, sold a couple of properties in the area. And the area that, I'm looking to buy in is Greensboro, North Carolina, and I'm looking for a 3-bed 2 bath, about 1,200 square feet. And Debbie's going to tell Bob, okay, awesome. Have you been pre-approved? Bob's like, well, pre-approved for what? Well, have you called your bank or your lender and got them to qualify you to buy a property? Now, Bob, he doesn't know anything about buying a property because he's never owned a property. So, I'm going to introduce you to my other friend, Mr. Banker. Now, Bob's going to make another call to Mr. Banker down here. And now Bob is going to have to tell Mr. Banker his entire life story. He's going to have to give him his date of birth. Let's turn this to another color where you can see it. Bob's going to have to give him his date of birth, social security number, last 3 months of pay stubs or his W-2, for his W-2, right? He's going to have to give him bank account information. He's going to have to run a credit check. He's going to have to make sure there's no liens or debt owed, right? And that's going to be in this credit check. And make sure there's no criminal things or, bad people, right? So Bob has his work cut out with Mr. Banker. Now, Mr. Banker and Bob, they're going to go back and forth, and Mr. Banker is going to say, Bob, looking at your package here, right, you qualify for $150,000. So Bob is going to call Debbie back. She's going to say, Debbie, I've been in talks with Mr. Banker. It's only taken 4 weeks. They finally came back and they said I was qualified, but I'm only qualified for $150,000. And Debbie's like, oh, okay, perfect. Well, let me start looking, and I'm going to start looking for a home that meets your criteria for $150,000. So it's Debbie, she's looking. Now, in the meantime, back up here, Sally has already been thinking about how to sell her home for top dollar. Top dollar meaning she wants the most amount of money, right? And because she wants the most amount of money, she's going to actually call my other friend, what should we name her? We're going to name her Jen. Okay? All right, so Sally makes a phone call. To Jen. Now, Jen is also a licensed real estate professional, and she is not associated with NAR. She's Agent Jen. She actually is it's against rules for her to call herself a realtor or even act or even use those contracts that is the exact same contract, but at the very bottom of it, it says NAR, National Association of Realtors. Honestly, guys, the reason NAR and the realtor thing, it just shows that you're a uppity up individual. There's no issues with you. NAR doesn't really do any extra vetting. It's just you're paying extra. Yeah, it's just one of those things. It's like insurance. That's the greatest scam on earth. All right. So Jen is talking to Sally, and Sally's saying, hey, Jen, I have my house, and it's a 3-bed, 2-bath, and it's about 1,300 square feet. Okay. And I need you, I don't really know how much it's worth, but I owe Don't really know how much it's worth, Jen, but I owe $130,000 on this property. Now, Jen, I need to make a little bit of money on this house because I just recently renovated the kitchen, and it's a really nice house, and I would like to get more. How much do you think I can get? Well, Jen, because she is licensed, she can get on the MLS, and she's going to run a CMA. And a CMA, comparative market analysis. So Jen is in the MLS, and she's able to look at all that data and say, hey, real quick, this is what I'm pulling on my CMA. I have 5 houses, and they average up around 165,000, and they look similar to yours. I think you would be perfect if you was to list it between 150 and 170,000. And Miss Sally, I cannot tell you exactly what price to list it. I can only advise you on about what the comparables are selling for in the area of other houses just like yours. Sally's go, oh, I completely understand, Jen. Listen, I think 165 is a good number. 165 minus 130, I should walk away with $35,000. Okay. So Jen, now she's gonna get a contract with Sally, and now they're gonna put paper on it. Okay. So they're gonna call, and they're going to get a contract. They're going to get a working with realtor, working with a agent. And then also they're going to get a listing agreement. And they're going to get these signed, and this is the instructions for these two individuals to work together. So an agreement or a contract, we prefer to always say the word agreement, not contract. Agreement, contract sounds threatening. Agreement just means like we're communicating very well and we made rapport. Now these two agreements, the first one is going to explain to Sally what exactly Jen does for Sally. And it's going to go through several different ways that Sally can be represented by Jen. Sally's going to make an informed decision on that. Anytime an agent tells you that, hey, just so you know, I am licensed and I am acting as an agent, or I am not acting as an agent, that is required because they are licensed. It is called the disclosure. They have to disclose or uncover and reveal to you that they are a licensed individual. Okay? Now, working with an agent, that one, Sally initials, no problem. It doesn't really mean much as far as binding. There's nothing binding about it. Now, the listing agreement is actually binding. This listing agreement says that Jen will list Sally's home for $165,000, and Sally agrees to work with Jen for about 6 months, and that Sally agrees to pay Jen's brokerage 6% of the sales price. Now you notice I said Jen's brokerage. So Jen is going to get all these documents completed, and then she's actually going to send them to her brokerage. And she's going to have another individual either check her work, or because they trust her, they're just going to sign off on it. but her brokerage is actually who Sally is in contract with. Sally can fire Jen if Jen doesn't do her job and ask Jen's brokerage to give her a new agent to work with. Now, the brokerage, we're going to call this EXP brokerage. All right. And actually, EXP is a real brokerage, and it's called EXP Realty. So this listing agreement is with EXP Realty, and it's going to stay that Jen is going to put her property on the MLS for $165,000. Sally agrees to give Jen 6 months to sell her property. And if Jen is able to sell her property, then Jen will get paid 6% in a split to her brokerage. As well as on that listing agreement, it's going to break down that Jen is going to do her best, is going to give her best ability and serve Sally to the best of her abilities, right? So, sorry, I said that kind of wrong. The listing agreement is going to state in there that Jen will provide Sally with the best service to her ability, meaning very subjective, okay? That's what I'm trying to convey to you. All right, so this is a listing agent. That's what Jen is doing, right? She has the listing agreement. She is a listing agent. All right, so listing agent Jen, her responsibility is to represent Sally. And that's what the working with a real estate agent agreement describes. Now, they have their agreement. Now, listing agent Jen is going to put it on the MLS. Now, Bob called Debbie, and Debbie is actually what you call a buyer's agent. So with Debbie being a buyer's agent and Jen being a listing agent, sometimes you may hear Jen actually being called a seller's agent. And sometimes you might actually hear Debbie being called a selling agent. The last example that I just described to you, I just want you to know that that exists, but it's very confusing, and I don't even want you to worry about understanding it. The terms I want you to use is buyer's agent and listing agent. Okay? Now, we talked about right now that Sally is in a contract or an agreement with Jen to represent her. Now, Jen, she's going to use her resources and her experience to get Sally the best price for her property that is possible in the market. So what can Jen do? Well, Jen only knows one thing. She's going to go and she's going to get on the MLS and she's going to list it. Multiple listing service, the same service where it's required for you to have a license to utilize. And then also Jen, only thing she knows is to put it on the MLS and wait. So that's the selling side. Now I want you to go to the next video and we're going to go on the rest of this, go over the rest of this transaction, but we're going to talk more about the buying side.